The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with self-confident voices, a large hall filled with officials from hundreds of star systems. The air shimmered with the gentle light of holographic displays, translating the multitude of languages spoken simultaneously. At the center, towering over most, stood Saver, a Zealand diplomat of considerable repute. His reptilian features, ordinarily impassive, were tense. His warning was about to be sent, one last plea before the inevitable. "The human tragedy must be handled carefully," he remarked, his voice coated with an artificial resonance to command attention. "I have studied them longer than any of you. Their history is strewn with self-inflicted wounds, wars, betrayals, collapses. But each time, they rebuild stronger. I tell you now, when humanity breaks, even the gods cringe." A wave of amused murmurs swept through the chamber. A Kovachi representative, a creature of flowing crystalline shape, let out a sound comparable to laughter. "You overestimate them, Saver. They are a young species, barely 3 centuries into space travel. Their technology is unsophisticated compared to ours." A deep clicking growl came from the Zari warlord seated nearby. "They should be grateful we have allowed them into the fold at all," he snarled. "Instead, they defy our authority, defy our laws, and dare to demand equality." His golden carapace gleamed beneath the artificial lighting, mandibles cracking with displeasure. Saver inhaled deeply, repressing his rising irritation. They weren't listening. They never did. "You do not understand them," he pressed. "No species in the known galaxy has their resilience. When you take everything from them, they do not surrender. They do not kneel. They retaliate. They endure suffering beyond comprehension, and from it, they forge something terrifying." A small avian-like diplomat from the Utari delegation flapped a wing dismissively. "Enough of this dramatization," he said. "Earth has ignored our sanctions. Their fleets continue to push into restricted zones. They refuse every attempt at control. The Council has been more than patient." Another voice, chilly and calculating, pierced through the noise. High Chancellor Drex, the ruling voice of the Council, leaned forward. His species, the Toll, had dominated galactic affairs for nearly 1,000 years. His elongated features were unreadable, his pupilless eyes reflecting nothing. "You send these warnings, Saver," Drex said, "but you have yet to provide evidence that humanity is any different from the dozens of insubordinate species we have tamed before. The embargo will crush them, and if they resist further, our fleets will make an example of them." Saver squeezed his fists. The ridges along his arms darkened in agitation. "You speak of war as if it is a trivial transaction, a cost to be measured. That is where you fail to grasp the gravity of this moment. Others break under oppression. Humans transform. The more they suffer, the more dangerous they become." Drex's expression remained impassive. "You give them too much credit," Drex replied. Saver breathed forcefully. "Do you know why their wars escalate beyond reason? Because if they recognize that peace is no longer an option, they stop holding back. They do not fight to win a war. They fight to end it, to ensure it never happens again. If you push them too far, they will not merely protest. They will remove those responsible." The chamber fell silent for a moment, the weight of his words settling over them. Then a dry chuckle broke the stillness. A sleek amphibious creature from the vast consortium leaned forward, his huge eyes glinting with amusement. "Saver, you say this as though humans are some cataclysmic force waiting to be unleashed. They are pests, nothing more. Their ships are inferior, their numbers are limited. What could they possibly do?" Saver's claws dug into the podium. He had seen the reports. He had studied their wars. The humans had not yet shown their true capabilities. They were still trying diplomacy, still clinging to the belief that the Council would act with reason. They had no idea what was coming. Saver exhaled slowly. "I have nothing else to say. You have made your decision. Now you shall face the consequences." Drex gave a slow nod, dismissing him with a flick of his elongated fingers. "Then let the embargo be imposed. Let mankind learn its place." Saver turned, exiting the chamber without another word. He had done all he could. Now, it was only a matter of time. The embargo struck with ruthless precision. Within days, Earth's supply chains collapsed. Trade routes were severed. Stations orbiting human colonies fell dark, their reserves dwindling as freighters were turned away. Every vital import, fuel, medical supplies, raw materials, was cut off without warning. On paper, it was a bloodless measure, a bureaucratic decision written and approved by the Galactic Council. In reality, it was slow suffocation. Across human space, distress signals flooded communication networks. Factories shut down. Starships were grounded, their power cores depleted. Colonists, once thriving in the harsh void of space, now rationed food and oxygen, knowing no help was coming. The Council anticipated conformity, submission, a desperate plea for mercy. Instead, Earth answered with silence. At first, the Council took this as quiet surrender. Diplomats sent messages proposing terms of reconciliation, words laced with condescension. No reply. Council intelligence monitored encrypted transmissions between human military factions, expecting signs of fear. None came. The silence stretched, strange, ominous. Then came the first strike. Outpost Theta 9, a minor commerce hub, reported a navigation failure. Then all contact was lost. Patrols sent to investigate found the station gutted. Security systems wiped clean. Not a single distress beacon activated. The Council dismissed it as the work of opportunistic raiders. Then, 3 more stations went dark, each one removed with surgical precision. No bodies, no wreckage, just gone. The pattern was evident to those who understood it. Humanity wasn't acting in desperation. They were preparing. Encrypted reports flooded the Council's capital world. A Zealand logistics fleet vanished in unexplored space. A Zari deep space relay station was compromised by an unknown AI before going completely offline. The attacks were scattered, unpredictable, but deliberate. Yet the true breaking point came when Fresh Avalon burned. A thriving human colony, 20 million people, one of Earth's greatest achievements, was gone. The progress on the frontier of space was steady. Then, in an instant, it was reduced to a smoldering graveyard. The onslaught came without warning, no negotiations, no ultimatums. Defense grids were overwhelmed in minutes. Cities turned to ash. Escaped ships were shot down as they fled. Survivors choked on the remains of what had once been their home. Then, a message broadcast across all human frequencies. This is the consequence of defiance. Submit or be erased. For the first time since the embargo began, Earth answered, not with words, not with diplomacy, but with a single transmission sent to every remaining colony, every military outpost, every warship bearing the Terran insignia. The encryption was unbreakable. The meaning unmistakable. No more words. Initiate procedure Ragnarok. Across the void, silence. Then, the storm began. Prime Shipyard, the largest construction hub in the sector, had gone black. No distress call. No evidence of attack. A fleet of 3 dreadnoughts and 20 escort ships had been stationed there for security. None had answered hails in over 6 hours. Silence fell over the chamber. For the first time, the Council recognized they weren't dealing with a defiant but wounded species. They were facing something colder, more purposeful. Then, the war truly began. At the remote borders of Council space, the first wave of human retribution struck. It came not as a fleet but as an absence. Relay stations linking planetary defense systems flickered and died. Trade convoys, expecting normal escort patrols, found only static on their comm channels. Entire fleets were left stranded as their navigational AIs turned against them. On the planet Karis 7, the main defensive hub for the sector, alarms blared through the command center. General Tori, a veteran of countless campaigns, barked orders, demanding a tactical readout. He had expected a conventional assault, capital ships launching a full frontal strike. Instead, the readouts indicated nothing. No incoming ships, no ground forces, no atmospheric disturbances. Then the power grid failed. Weapon stations went offline. Planetary shields flared, struggling to reset. Orbital platforms deployed urgent distress messages only to find their systems turning against them, an AI override. But that shouldn't have been possible. Council systems were designed to resist external interference. Then the first explosions tore through the military complex, not from orbital strikes, but from inside. Munition stockpiles detonated. Fuel depots erupted into firestorms. Weapon caches self-destructed in synchronized waves. Garrison forces rushed in, panicked. By the time the first human ships appeared at the system's border, the planet was defenseless. What should have been a prolonged struggle ended in hours. By daybreak, Karis 7 no longer belonged to the Council, and it was only the beginning. Across the sector, human forces executed their plan with cold, calculated precision. They did not engage in large-scale fleet battles. They did not occupy planets with drawn-out invasions. They made sure the Council never got the chance to fight back. Supply depots vanished. Reinforcement fleets were lured into ambushes. Communication networks were corrupted, issuing false directives and sending entire battalions into dead space.